because they failed so many times that they just think that they're going to fail another time. And it's so much a reflection of me. And I can tell you that for everyone that I've ever met, your ideal client is always a younger version of yourself, because that's how you
Interesting.
can really help people.
Oh, look at the nuggets that Elyse. Hello and welcome back to the Ignition Path podcast. My name is Kyle Goodknight. I'm so glad you tuned in today. I've got a great episode for you. Before we get to that, make sure you like, subscribe, share. If you hear something that resonates with you or someone that you know needs to hear this episode, please don't hesitate to share that with them. So today my guest is Elyse Alexander. She's an entrepreneur. She's going to tell us all about her story. Elyse, how you doing?
I am great. How are you, Kyle?
I'm doing fantastic, as we talked about a few minutes before we hit record. I was in LA last week and I'm still on a high. And that's, I guess, close to where you live from what I just found
It's
out.
so funny how the world works, right? That you are exactly where you are at the time that you're meant to be at. So I'm a little jealous that Kyle came to Disney and didn't share it with me, but I didn't know. Like, I'm not always in the States, so knowing that next time you come to Anaheim, let me know.
Well, that was the thing. I was doing so much because it happened so fast, because I went out there for a voiceover gig for a video game, and it happened so fast. I was trying to find networking events. I went online trying to find networking events where I could meet people out there, because I'm kind of an extrovert, if you want to call it that. So like, I have no problem. That wall right there is my best friend, as you can tell, I've got Miss Time Clock on the wall here. So, but, but it's one of those things where I got back, and I promise you, now two people that you'll be the second that were on my podcast that lived in and around LA, and were like, why didn't you call me up? I'm like, I was doing so much networking trying to find out who I could meet up with out there, and it didn't even, back when we talked, when we had our first meeting, and you didn't mention that you'd be in LA or LA area, Anaheim, in that time frame. It's all like one big huge conglomerate, right? That's one thing I found out. And I drove in LA, by the way, and thank goodness that I'm a
Wow.
paramedic and know how to drive an ambulance. So, because it was no different than trying to drive through traffic fast. Not that I was going fast, but man, people are crazy out there. Sorry,
It is
we
crazy.
digress. Let's get back to
Yeah.
Elyse. Elyse, tell us about who you are, what you do, what your entrepreneurial path it was and is.
And is. What a great, interesting, weird, like jumble of a world, right? Because I am someone who firmly believes that you know what you're meant to do at like a really young age, but you don't really know how to get there, nor do you know exactly what it is, right? But I am also someone who believes like that you know that you're meant for more very, very young. So when I was probably about like 5 or 6 is the first time that I was ever like, you know what, being an entrepreneur might be cool.
I
And
didn't
then I
even
saw
know
my
that word
parents.
when I was 5 or 6, though. No.
So both my parents are entrepreneurs, Kyle, which is
Ah,
the
there.
only
That's right.
reason
That's right.
why I even know that that exists, right? But I saw it and I was like, you guys work a lot. I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. Like, that doesn't look like so much fun. But what they got to do with it and what I got to see, and, my parents were big on traveling the world at like, very, very young. I realized that entrepreneurship was like a key and it was a gift. But I really didn't want to like work long hours. I really didn't want to do all of that sort of thing. But I think from a very young age, I was always meant to be an entrepreneur. Speed up a little bit. I went to culinary school. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna like beat against the grain. I'm gonna do something else. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe like business management might also be helpful, right? And I think in that, I was like, I don't really want to sit at a desk all day. Like that doesn't really like bring me joy. And so through that, I started helping different entrepreneurs and really kind of like getting my feet wet. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, like when I ask people questions, they actually like answer and I can help them. Oh, wow. Like you can make money at this. And I was like, okay. And it just progressed from there. Like I started to learn, okay, like if you can see something that someone else can't, right? That's a value. If you can honor what someone else is wanting to build and they can't really see it, right? They want to be a visionary, but they can't really like translate that into action or being able to build it. I was like, okay, I'm kind of good at that too. But then I was like, you know what? Scratch that. I was like, put that on hold. And I was a chocolatier for 8.5 years. I was a pastry chef for 4 years. And I was like, okay, like at night, like I'm going to work on my entrepreneurial journey. And then during the day, I'm going to make money and basically continue what it is that I got a degree in. And so it wasn't until about 5.5 years ago that I was like, you know what? I don't want to get sick 6 times a year and get paid absolutely nothing forever. Like, I need to figure out how we continue to transition, right, to be a full-time entrepreneur. And I'll be honest with you, I did it horribly. Like, I am not someone who did this the right way. Do not listen to my experience and be like, oh, that's a great idea. Like, I will share with you, I literally like, I'll call it failing forward, right? That's a book that I read a couple of years ago. If you
Great
haven't read
book.
it, please read it. It's a
It's a
great
good book.
book. And I continued to kind of like faceplant over and over and over. And so after I stepped back from the factory, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna continue to try and figure this out full time. And so I would literally like at night, Kyle, you will laugh your ass off. I literally like would tell people, I'd be like, hey, if you have a problem, come to me and I'm gonna figure it out. And I had this, I remember my first client like so vividly. She came to me and she was like, Elyse, I have no idea what's wrong. I know there's an issue in my business, but I have no idea what to do. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure it out. So we sat there for like 2 hours. She paid me $20 an hour. And she was like, just see what you could do with it. And the reality is that she really wasn't happy with what she was doing. And I could see it, but she didn't want to really be honest about it. Right. And
That's
so
the
the
hard
more
part.
we progressed in kind of having that conversation, she was like, oh, you know what? Actually, okay, that there's a valid point. Okay, I haven't really been doing this to my fullest ability because I don't really like doing it. And we started like kind of giving her other people to give that support to so that she could reallocate her time. That was
Right.
the first person I ever helped for money to where I was like, oh wow,
That's
okay,
kinda
like
cool.
I can kind of do this, right? And so I started with nothing, no training, no understanding. I just started. And
Wow.
so that has what's led me to where I am now. And
Right.
then like I'll share a little bit of the progression because I think that like people do a lot of like movie style, like, oh, I went from like zero to like $1 million, and I don't think that's fair. So I went from $20 to $100 an hour,
Jeez.
$100 an hour, continuing to help more people, training myself, getting
Right.
training that I was paying like thousands and thousands of dollars
Yeah.
for, because
Yeah.
I truly believe in learning from other people as well. I'm huge into personal development, huge into really recognizing that I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room, Kyle. I always want to continue to learn from other people. So
Yep.
I found people who were doing millions of dollars of coaching, people who were really intentional about how they wanted to do business, right? Because I didn't really like, I saw everybody working uphill all the time and like really killing themselves, like
Yeah.
physically, emotionally, mentally. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I was like,
Right.
I want to do this, but how do I not do that? And
Right.
so from that, I kind of built my business around learning how to bring things to me, started doing a little bit of social media. That didn't work. And I was like, okay, I was like, well, maybe we'll just create another business, right? Because whenever you get stuck, like your mentality is like, maybe we'll just create another business. And so I thought of like 10 other businesses, Kyle, that did not work. And so I was like, okay, I was like, well, okay, maybe we'll go back to what works, which I don't know why our mentality as like people or humans, that when something starts to work, you stop it. Don't know what that's about. I'm continuing to learn and understand that. I'm very intrigued into psychology and all of those things. So now we lead up to establishing building Burning Pure. This was about 3 years ago. I sat in my room and I remember like distinctly being like, okay, how much money could I save for this period of time to where I could stop working altogether everywhere else and figure out how to like make this my 100% full-time commitment of what I want to do, what I want to brand and become what I'm doing.
Right.
And so COVID hits, right? And we're like, okay, so now what? And so, actually, funny enough, I end up going to work at another chocolate factory. And again, I just keep sequencing and I just keep circling this like weird dial of like, okay, like I'm kind of good at this and like maybe I should just stay here. And then, you know what, actually, like I'm really meant to do something else and I'm really meant to do something bigger. And I know I have more potential, but I couldn't get past myself. And I am a firm believer that we are the things in the way, but we do not want to admit that we are the things in the
That's
way.
exactly what you coached your first client. You coached her
Yes,
exactly now. It's full circle.
100%. And I do believe like you fix, well, maybe not fix, you adjust and manage yourself way before you ever touch someone else's life or way before you ever get to another client. And
Right.
so once I saw, right, what I could do and what I could kind of like move and see the pieces of, I was like, okay, I'm quitting the factory. I am going to do this full time. And for a period of like 8 months, I went hard,
All
Kyle.
in.
I got 4 clients. I was making $5,000 a month. I was absolutely killing it. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay. I was like, well, now what? And here's like the really interesting thing, because I had gotten to the point where I had really tailored myself down to where I was helping new and aspiring entrepreneurs get out of their own way. That is what I do now. But that was the first time that I had ever really like kind of segmented it, right? Really niched it down.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking, okay, well, now that I've like niched it down, and now that I have my own business, and now that I'm making money, shouldn't I just like stop? And I don't know why, again, like that thought comes up in you, but I was like, huh, well, that's weird. And I let that go. And so I've continued to build since then, but I will be fully honest that it is not an easy process.
No.
I've gained a lot of clients, I've lost a lot of clients,
Yeah.
I've rebuilt from nothing. I have continued to grow and understand where it is that I am not doing the right thing or understanding the right thing. But I think that an entrepreneurial journey, to be honest, in my opinion, is like a forever thing. It's something that
Oh,
you
it is.
do for
Of course it
the rest of
is.
your life.
100%. My entrepreneurial path started when I got the first time I got paid to mow a lawn back when I was 11 or 12 years old, maybe even younger. I mean, that's where I feel that my entrepreneurial path started, because I remember as a child doing all kinds of stuff to make money. I would go knock door to door and sell the candy bars for the Boy Scouts, and I was always the one that sold the most jugs of apple cider every fall for whatever event that we had for fundraising. Like that's all entrepreneurial stuff too. If you can go out there and knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, do you want to sponsor? That's no different than being someone who coaches. It really isn't. So it's one of those things where I wanted to you said something that really stood out to me, and it makes total sense now because we're very, very much alike. Because I feel I'm a creative. I've always been very creative. I can look at something and figure it out. I can look at something, take it apart, and figure out how to put it back together. I can look at someone else's problems and go, huh, and look at it in a different way and suggest something. And then they go, damn, okay, yeah. So, and you having that chocolatier background, which is a creative background. One of my best friend's wife is a high-end pastry chef who does the cakes with all the awesome decoration.
Yeah.
That girl is so damn creative. I'm like, how do you do this, Kelly? Like, how does this even work? Like, how did you even have that vision? And it's one of those things where those people that have that artsy creativity, they can, if they pivot, if they're brave enough and have enough balls, pardon my French,
Yeah. No.
they can take that same creativity and put it into the next thing. I started a voiceover business of a few years back, right? And that was a creative process. I'm sitting in my studio now. I built this studio. There's a booth right there, and all of this whole setup is all because I saw it in my brain, right? Or I may have seen pictures, but I'm that kind of person that can see pictures and then build it. So it makes sense that you pivoted when you weren't being fulfilled. So talk a little bit more about like that emotional feeling that you got when you made the pivot and you went all in.
So, a couple of things. I would say 3 things. Number 1, a lot of like abandonment and loss, because
Hmm.
you have to say like goodbye to the version of you that currently exists.
Not just people you know, but you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
because
this is
I'm sure
really
you
hard.
found some fulfillment in what you did, right? I mean, when you're making
I
chocolate, I
did.
mean, like you had fulfillment, right? Like when I build people's bathrooms, I get fulfillment when I'm done. But my shoulders and my back kill me now, you know? I'm just too old to do it anymore. I know I look
So
young, but
more
I'm old.
I'm turning 30 this year. I'm not as
Oh,
young as
I got you
as
beat
I
by
may
20.
seem.
I got you beat by 22 years, so
So what I'm more referring to, Kyle, is identity. How do
okay.
we refer to ourselves, how we
Mm,
talk about ourselves, how
great
we
point.
think about ourselves, right? I loved chocolate and I still do. It's something that I still find like deep passion that I love. But I would say, in terms of like dreams that I had inside of me, things that I knew that I could do more of, I
Mm,
knew that there was something missing. And when I say that, abandonment and loss, it's letting go of all of your comfortabilities. It's letting go of everything that's currently in the state of mind and the physical state that you are in, because you have to be willing to try something new and you have to be willing to be something new. And so that is
That
a really
that's tough.
uncomfortable,
Very uncomfortable. But
and
you
to be
gotta
honest,
embrace the uncomfortable.
and
It's
I'm a big believer in that. I will be like 100% vulnerable and honest. I was someone who used to say that, and then behind the scenes, I'd be like, "Oh,
oh,
like that's really comfortable. Like I don't know if I want to do that." And then I put people in my life, my partner, and a lot of my friends included, who were like, "Oh no. You're
you
not going
said
to be the
this.
person that's
You
going to
said
say the
this. Yeah,
thing
yeah,
and not
and
do
then
the
not do
thing.
it, right.
Like we're not doing that."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I
exactly.
truly think that once you get past that, and I don't want to whisk past that quickly, because I think that that's the stage where everyone gets stuck, is
Yeah.
because it is lonely to become someone else, to be someone else. I lost a shit ton of friends. I
Mhm.
lost almost every single person in my life that I had at that time, because I was willing to do something new, because I was willing to be something new, because my standards, my boundaries, everything had changed,
Yep,
because I wanted to be a different person. And
right.
so I truly believe that that's where it starts. But where it leads to is something even more beautiful, right? The opportunity of what it feels like to truly be fulfilled and to continue to be excited. And the only thing I can compare it to, Kyle, you'll laugh at this, is
Mm.
like the people that wake up on Mondays and they're like, "Ugh, I have to go to, I don't want to go to." And like, I never wanted to be that person. I never wanted to wake up and be that person. I never wanted to, like, on a Sunday have like what they call like Sunday scaries. I just wasn't
Oh,
interested in it. I started to notice that
oh my
with
god, I'm
my
writing that one
job.
down. Oh my god.
Exactly.
Oh my
With
god, Sunday Scaries.
with my job at the factory. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
The
And so
Sunday
that kind of really led me into, okay, like, how do we become fulfilled? How do we do something every day that's new and scary and uncomfortable and become the person that I want to be?
yeah, the Sunday Scaries, I live with someone who gets the Sunday Scaries. She hates Mondays. And and I'm always like, "Oh, why don't we just enjoy the day and don't worry about it until, you wake up in the morning and then hate the Monday." And she's like, "Listen, you have 4 jobs and you like them all." And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You don't know what I'm going through." And I'm like, "You're right, and I'm so glad I don't," because I've I've rarely felt that feeling of, "Oh my god," the case of the Mondays, and when you go for, like, the
Yeah.
an office space, when you go for that door and it shocks you. I had 1 job like that. It didn't start off that way, but it turned that way, and when it did, I'm like, "I'm out." And so I rarely, don't get me wrong, if I'm tired or something, yeah, nobody wants to just even get up and do stuff, but like, I can honestly say that, like, I look forward to my podcast meetings. I look forward to recording my podcasts. I look forward to going to the medic. I have a good time when I go to the medic. I love my crew. When I worked at the hospital as a respiratory therapist, I look forward to going into the hospital and being that guy, being the guy that everybody looked up to and looked to fix their airway problems. And the nurses calling, be like, "Kyle, I need you in this room." You're like, "Yep, I'm right there," because I like to serve. I'm a giver. I'm a constant giver. And that's part of my problem in entrepreneurship, especially when
Yeah.
you're not doing it to make money. Sometimes when you have the knowledge and you're willing to help people and you're such a giver, then you look back and you're like, "Oh my God, I just gave away thousands of dollars of my knowledge. Like, what am I doing?" And that person doesn't see the value in it. And now I want to say, "Hey, can I charge you?" And they think I'm smacking them across the face. Right. And it's one of those things where that's, I, we're on different paths. We've had different ways of getting there. I was not a chocolatier. Now I ate a lot of chocolate, but but it's one of those things where our path is so similar, and it's just great that this is why I love podcasting, because you meet so many people that are more similar than you realize. The struggle's about the same. You have to embrace the
Yeah.
struggle. When you're up against that wall in entrepreneurship, you kind of have to push through it. You do have to
Yeah.
fall forward, right? So tell me more about, like, what you're doing. Like, what is it that Burning Pure LLC does right now? What's your ideal client? How do people get a hold of you and all that good stuff?
All the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm someone who always wanted to attract a client rather than like push and force and make something happen. Not that I'm not available for action and not that I'm not available to work hard. My coach always says, like, I'm not available for working hard more than I need to. And so that's something that I've definitely kind of adopted. Okay, so Burning Pure basically turned from one-on-one coaching to one-on-one coaching, group coaching, a membership. I've kind of built a lot of things around it because I realized that not everybody can afford the value that you're going to ask for. It
Mm.
doesn't mean that you shouldn't offer it. It just means that you should offer it in different ways, right? So not everybody could start to come to me and be like, "Oh, Lisa, I would love one-on-one time." And I'm like, "Great." And they'd be like, "But I don't have the
Yeah,
funds to be able to
blank.
support
Yeah,
you."
right.
Exactly. And I think it happens a lot to a lot of different coaches, whether you're a coach or a teacher. I think it happens honestly to almost every single person I know.
Mhm.
And so what I learned was that I started to hit the wall, number one, with money, and number two, with time. And so I started to create different, like smaller coaching modules where there was multiple people in one group, because that's the
Mhm.
thing with coaching as well,
Yeah,
is that if you only have one one-on-one client forever, your
yeah.
time is booked. You have no
Yep.
other time. You have no other way to be able to support people. And I am like you. I'm a recovering overgiver. And so I have this like
I don't
problem
even know if I'm
where
recovering yet.
oh no, I'm recovering because I
Trying.
realized how much it
I've
took for
I've
me.
almost destroyed a couple of friendships, unfortunately, but I'm building them back, I hope. So,
I believe in you. I believe in you. And I think honestly, Kyle, it's something that like a lot of us are built with, especially if your parents have it. Like now we're going down a coaching road.
right.
But I do think that a lot of us are overgivers. So intentionally choosing not to overgive, I created a podcast so that I could give to the world, but on a less extensive timeline. So Burning Pure is a one-on-one coaching, group coaching, membership, podcast,
Right.
and a Disney box. No, I'm just kidding. Uh,
All wrapped up with with the set of ears. No.
exactly. But
Hi,
I have
everybody.
Burning Pure. I have burningpure.com in terms of where you can go,
Okay.
Burning Pure Instagram. And I really just think that
I'll
people
put
that are
that all
meant
in the
for
show
you,
notes for everybody. So,
yeah, people that are meant for you will always find you. One of the biggest mistakes that I made when I
hmm,
first started
I
coaching
like that
is
nugget.
that you're
I
like,
like that. Every episode has a nugget, and that's a good one. Besides the Sunday scaries, that was a great one too.
because people always think like, oh, if I don't do this, then I'm going to lose this client, or if I don't do like this,
Right.
whatever this person's asking, right, they're going to leave me, whether it's like a relationship or whatever it is. But in reality, like if someone's meant for you, if an opportunity is meant for you, it's never going to pass you by. It's never going to like walk past you. It may not be in that moment. And that's something that I really didn't like for a long time, was like divine timing. And then I realized that when something
Real,
is meant to happen, it will
real.
happen. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's in my control. And so my
And we
ideal
talked
client
about
is
that
someone
too
that
before we recorded. So
exactly.
that's why I
My
have a
ideal
Star
client
Wars helmet coming to me because of
exactly.
my deep
See?
my divine cancellation in LA last week led me to a helmet that I've been looking for 3 years. I almost bought it at Disney. I was the next person in line to get one at Disney Hollywood Studios.
Oh wow.
And the guy in front of me bought it 3 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, I want a helmet just like he bought. Do you have any more? And they're like, nope, that was the last one. I had not seen that helmet for 3 years anywhere. And I walked into downtown Disney
Oh yeah,
and
they have them.
Anaheim, and they had them right there. I was like, done. Like, that's the
Take
reason.
my money, please. Thank you. But no, really, like I really do believe my clients have always known, and like let me just be brutally honest. My clients have always known that something's wrong. They know, they see it, they understand that they are the thing in the way, but they have no idea where to start. They have no idea what to do, and they have no idea because they failed so many times that they just think that they're going to fail another time. And it's so much a reflection of me. And I can tell you that for everyone that I've ever met, your ideal client is always a younger version of yourself, because that's how you
Interesting.
can really help people.
Oh, look at the nuggets that Elisa dropped from the top. Okay, so when you talked about that they were the thing in the way, that
Mhm.
is a huge, huge thing because I talk to so many people that don't realize that they want to they're like there's no humility. Like entrepreneurs, please, please, please go be humble. If you don't know how to be humble, figure it out because if you're not humble, you're not going to be able to say you're not going to be able to look at your own business and understand where to grow it. So that's a big factor that you mentioned that your first client and even you later on started realizing is that you weren't being honest with yourself about your business. And as soon as you can, and when you have one-on-one clients, you can do that. Even when you have some group coaching, you can, because other people that have the epiphany of, wait a second, I'm not being humble here. I'm the problem in my own business. The other people watching that and seeing you coach them through that can say, okay, let's reflect back on myself now. Where am I failing myself? So just talk just a little bit about that and we'll
Yeah.
wrap things up when it comes to when like how hard is it that to get out of somebody? Because I think that's where a lot of people when they're at a spot, but they want their business to grow. Because I talk to people all the time. I'm like, are you wanting your business to grow? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, here's a couple of ideas that I've got that I can help you with. They're like, oh, no, I don't do that. I don't have time. Wait a second. I can put you in front of 15 or 20 of your ideal clients on a weekly basis. Like, why
Mhm.
wouldn't you want to explore that at least for 60 days? And they just don't, they're not willing to say, yeah, I'm fucking up. I need to do it differently.
So it starts off with belief. And I want to tell you a story as well, because I think that this is really important. Number one, there is no compartmentalization of like, okay, I'm gonna put life over here and I'm gonna put business over here.
Right.
If one thing is going wrong, right, then another thing is going wrong somewhere else. So like I
Mhm.
always say like if there's something going on in the boardroom, there's something going on in the bedroom because
Right.
it's normally another part of your life that's going to reflect it that you're willing to see. And
Right.
when you said that I was lying to myself about my business, it was actually that I was lying to myself about my life and it just
Mm,
reflected in my
into
business.
business.
And I'll tell you the story. So, the reason that I acknowledged that there was something wrong and that I realized that I was the thing in the way was that I made the same mistake probably about 11 or 12 times in a row to where I was like, okay, so if I do this again, then I'm going to end up in the exact same place. And I am someone, and I'll just tell you the story. I'll be super vulnerable, super honest for you, Kyle.
That's what we're all about.
Um, I was sitting
My
on the
other
ground.
podcast is all about that. So
It's like what I'm famous for is like my vulnerability. I'm just willing to like tell you straight.
I tell
It's
people that
just
I wear my heart on my sleeve, and as soon as you meet me, you know everything about me. So
well, I think that's how people resonate, right? That's how they see you. That's how they see themselves in you. And this is how
right,
you truly see this. I
right.
was sitting on the ground in my apartment on the floor, crying in the corner. Like, I'm not talking like, oh, I'm cute crying. I was ugly crying. Like, I was absolutely, yeah, like bawling my eyes out. And I was sitting there and I was like, I was like, how do we end up in the same place over and over and over again? And I was like listing things off in my head that I had failed at. And I was saying to myself, like, oh, like I can never find a job that like really like fits my talents. I can never find a man who will tell me he loves me. I can never figure out how to be like confident and strong and independent and actually like do it right. Why do I feel like I keep having to start over? Like it was the same story, right, that I was telling myself in different ways over and over and over. And finally, when I had hit that moment, I was like, oh shit. Okay, so everything else around me hasn't changed. So that means I have to change.
Right.
And in that moment, I was like, okay, I was like, you know what? I am the thing in the way. Because if no one else is ever going to change, right? If nothing else around me is ever going to shift, then I have to be the thing to shift because I was someone who did not have the best relationship with my parents. I didn't have the best relationship with my partners. I didn't have like an honest relationship with myself. And so I was like, okay. And I remember saying to someone like, I don't like I don't like this person. I don't like this person. And they'd be like, okay, well, if they never change, then what are you going to do? And I remember thinking about that question over and over and over. And that's what really brought me to realize, like, okay, I am the thing in my own way. And you don't want to admit it at first, but then you have to acknowledge that you've been lying to yourself about a whole lot of other stuff
Mm,
for a long time. And I think that's when you can get to a place where you can be honest. Because going back to what you originally said, I think it's belief and fear of what holds people back of like, oh, you're giving them the world, right? And you're like, hey, this is exactly what you say you want. Number one, people don't really know what they actually want. They think they know what they want or what they
mm,
think will make them happy, but they don't actually know, right? They've never written it down. They've never sat there and really thought about it. And number two, normally the thing that scares them most is actually the thing they want most.
yeah, of course, of course. Wow, that's great, and all of that from, such a young mind. I mean, you're not even 30 yet. I mean, when I was 29, I was scared to death because my first kid was on the way. I didn't have and I was still an entrepreneur back then. Like I was doing side jobs or multiple jobs, and it wasn't long after that that I got my medical sales job, but that was still an entrepreneurial path because I I controlled my own territory and I could do what I
Mhm.
wanted to do. I didn't have to follow like a system. So there was still a lot of
Right.
entrepreneur in that as well that I did for 9 years. But Elyse, thank you so much for coming on the Ignition Path podcast. I could talk to you for hours. We're very similar when it comes to when it comes to just goofing off. Like, I mean, we talked for what, 25 minutes before we started recording
Yeah.
per se. So
We're
it's
like,
just
oh, snap.
yeah, yeah. So, found out we both have a love for Disney, and we were in the same town like last week. So I was probably I drove so there's a rocket that has the duck
Yep.
symbol on it. I drove
Yep.
by that and that wasn't that far from where I got off for Disney. So yeah,
Yep.
so like I was like, "Oh my God, that's a rocket with a," because we're a big hockey family too. And I'm like, "That's a rocket with the new Anaheim Duck logo on it," or which is the old Anaheim Duck logo. So what was new is old. What was old is new again, right? So thank you so much
True.
again. Everybody, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. All of Elisa's information will be down in the show notes, of course, if you want to get a hold of her, if she resonates with you and you want to get some coaching with her. And heck, I can't wait to talk to her again. I know I will someday. I'm sure we have a lot of things that we can share with one another and network with each other. Plus, if I'm in Ireland or if I'm in LA ever again, we're definitely going to hit each other up. So anything else before we
Deal.
sign off, Elise?
Hmm. I would say, if you have a dream, be willing to go after it.
Right. Right. Sounds great. That's great advice. All right. Thanks so much, Elise, for coming on. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Ignition Path, fueling the entrepreneurial fire.